So, we are now going to have a look at Tom de Bruce's essay, and we're going to start with a plan, okay? It's always a good idea to start with a plan, and this is not the worst plan we've ever seen, okay? It's also not the best, and let's go into why. So, Tom's got hardware here. It looks like he's got a computer and a concept keyboard, possibly valid. Not 100% sure what this says here, something about sign up. I'd be surprised if you did sign up on a concept keyboard, as a concept keyboard is of course generally predetermined keys and what they actually are, like at a McDonald's checkout. Computer and mouse and keyboard, fine. You may want another bit coming off just off it, saying like, you know, selecting things, entering new details, possibly wouldn't take you much longer. You then have software here. We have something or other, something with website. Yes, okay, but a website is not software. You need to have website creation software, something like Excel, spreadsheet, record customers. Okay, fine. So we've got an idea of what you're going to cover from that. You know, if you had then, you know, stopped the exam and finished, you might pick up 1 mark for that plan. So let's have a look at the rest of your stuff that you've put here. So give me 1 second. Just zoom out a little bit. Now, so the young entrepreneur setting up a business will need to have the latest technology to help provide a successful health and fitness. Okay, that's a little bit odd the way you've written that. In this essay, I will be discussing the hardware, communication technologies and software he should consider. Right. Okay, that's fine. It's a decent introduction. You're going into what you'll actually be discussing. Be careful, your writing's a bit messy. It could even get to the point where some things are not legible and you could lose marks. We'll have a look later on as we're going through this. Let's look at the next paragraph. Okay.
And keyboard, a keyboard.
Is that any something keyboard will be...
I think it's a keyboard.
Alright, a keyboard will be needed to type information of the customer's details. That seems very, very brief there, okay? This hard drive will be efficient.
I think that's hardware.
Oh, this hardware will be efficient, sorry, okay. As it is cheap and easy. And up we come to something. Oh, have you cut it? Oh, to train an employee how to use it. However, keyboards can cause RSI to employees, and so the entrepreneur will need to advise employees to take 10-minute break to avoid it. That's actually quite good there. You've shown decent knowledge that actually legislation can link in with that. And I know it doesn't tell you to, but that's a form of discussion there actually. Okay, you may have wanted to offer an alternative to what they could have used there as well, and say exactly what they're going to be entering as well.
I just want to throw in there that I actually really like the choice of hardware that you've chosen to talk about. It doesn't matter if you choose the newest, best bit of equipment out there, like using an iPod to do this, that, and the other, and all this singing and dancing. You can go to the most simple things that they would use, and there's nothing wrong with that. Keyboard is often overlooked in a question like that, and it's really easy, as you've done there, to set up in a very quick paragraph, open your sentence, and then into the rest of the paragraph a discussion on how a keyboard and why you would use a keyboard, and you have discussed the disadvantage there.
Okay, so let's have a look at another, and it's good to see here the first line I'm reading, another hardware alternative to a... Oh, okay, interesting. So we are looking at an alternative. You said a concept keyboard. I mentioned earlier with your plan, I'm not 100% sure that they would always have a concept keyboard at a gym. Okay, because remember, as I said, concept keyboards generally like what they have in McDonald's checkout, that kind of stuff, the very predetermined values, and you may not be able to do that in a gym all the time. Okay, so this will allow the customer to is a concept keyboard, right? Okay, yeah. This will allow the customer to enter their own details when they join the gym, saving the employees something.
I'm just going to stop here. I think you need to make sure you understand what a concept keyboard is here, because why could the customer not just use a a touch screen or a keyboard to type in their own details. The idea about concept key was you have predetermined bits, so it would come in when the customer wanted to go swimming. If they had to pay for that or into a class, you'd have that class as a button. So it saves you typing in all the class's details. You just press that one button and it brings up all the details in, because it's a predetermined set of instructions stuck behind a button. And that's what a concept keyboard is here.
Okay.
Yes, good that you've set up the discussion here.
Yeah, it's a good structure. However, I'm now going to go on to this next bit here, which you said, furthermore, concept keyboards are easy to use, but a specialised operating system will be needed, which will take time to make.
No, again, that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's not a specialist operating system, it's a specialist software to interpret, or driver. Driver is something that the operating system needs to understand how the piece of hardware works. But a specialist bit of software would be needed for the concept keyboard to communicate effectively with the operating system.
And be careful here, because we've seen this with Sophie's as well. Not that she's talking about this, but it seems to me sometimes students will try and chuck things in to impress, even though you may not have a perfect understanding of what it actually is. So if possible, try to stick to the things that you have a good understanding of. And that's exactly where Sir came back to, how he was impressed that you said a normal keyboard, because that's something we all understand how it works very easily. Okay, so let's go down here. There we go. So an entrepreneur will need software of a spreadsheet to allow the company to save their customers' details. Okay, yeah, that is a valid way of doing it. Using this software will only allow calculations of sums to be done. Sorry, you've crossed out only. Will allow calculations of sums to be done quickly and use what-if scenario to show different situation of customer accounts. Now, be careful there. When you talk about customer details, you'll tend to be talking about the details of who they are, where they live, that kind of stuff. And it's unlikely that you're going to do. I know you've talked about customer amounts afterwards, but to me, it doesn't look like it is particularly correct. You're talking about the customer details here. You then go straight into customer amounts here. I'd want you to indicate that one's being used to store their actual details. The other bit is to do finances and things like that. But your actual parts of what a spreadsheet can be used for is correct.
Yeah, it is valid.
Yeah? Okay. However, using a spreadsheet will take a long time and require employees to be trained to know how to use it correctly. Perfectly valid. Let's come up again. So also a website is needed to show customers about the gym online. Having a website will allow the business to communicate with, I don't know what on earth that says, something
with customers,
possibly customers, but
through
surveys to improve the service being currently given or something.
Offered.
Okay, so
we're getting back to your legibility here.
Yeah,
an examiner's not going to try as hard as we are to work out what it says.
Yeah, we're finding it difficult to read that. A website is perfectly valid. Okay.
It's a communication technology.
It is a communication technology. So now we see you've talked about software.
Yeah.
You've talked about hardware in your keyboards. You've only talked about one type of hardware at the moment. But you have talked about software, and you've now talked about communication as well. To create a website, here we go. So we're talking about now creation of a website. Dreamweaver, let's just say, is needed. We're needed to
create
work,
a website,
to be made, or to be used. Will be needed to be used. This will involve code having to be used. So only a specialist.
I think you mean a specialist. But
specialist can make it, which will cost money. Okay. Also, Dreamweaver allows you to personalise the website as how you would want it to be. What is the benefits to the gym of doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, you'd want to be going into
you've
there.
Stopped discussing now.
Yeah. So okay, this and to allow it so that if a gym could actually do this, it would mean that they could advertise what they're doing. They could have all sorts of promotional materials on it. They can give people an extra place where they can go and look before they see if they want to join. They can have, advertising pictures of the pool and everything like that. which of course are extremely useful, and it's actually a very important part of the gym. So the entrepreneur having a concept keyboard and website.
As part. Website
spreadsheet will allow it to run the business efficiently, as it will understand its customers. I would not say that's a particularly good conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, it seems muddled. Maybe you had no time left there or something like that. You know, it's always important you try and leave yourself 25 minutes for these questions. But having said that, you haven't done terribly here, because now we come up and get the mark scheme in front of you.
I just want to just point on this very quickly. Sir and I struggled quite a bit there, and there's I'm not saying there's every chance, but an examiner may, on the day, say, well, I couldn't read it, couldn't understand it. Just slow down a bit, give yourself a bit more time, because they could give you in the 0 to 5 if they can't read it.
Yeah, exactly. So can you just keep that? Let's go up and just say why you're out of that, though.
Okay.
So the low mark range, okay? We can look here. So you said it shows little understanding, has made reference to at least one of hardware, communication and software. Well, you've obviously shown some understanding, okay? In fact, in some places you've shown decent understanding, and you've done more than one hardware, communication, software. Okay, so you've talked about all three, in fact. So that now brings us down a bit. We're looking at mid. Okay, so describes at least 2 from hardware, communication technologies, and software which may be appropriate. Okay, you know, some of them are a little iffy with the appropriateness, or at least you and the concept keyboard, I would say, is not appropriate. Okay, at the bottom it's talking about the fact that text is legible. Now, as Sir says, the top one says text is barely legible. He said on a bad day you might end up with 5 marks here. Okay, we're going to assume it's not a bad day at the moment, and go on actually what we've picked out, because it said, you know, we've got meaning is nearly always clear. Is candidate is the main user form and style of writing. Your actual way you structured it and the way you linked things together was good,
with the exception of the conclusion.
Yeah, the conclusion was terrible. Okay, good mark range. Now, let's have a look here. The candidate describes some hardware, communication technologies and software which may be appropriate. Notice that it is not actually saying yet that have to be appropriate. It just says which may be appropriate. So I think you've done enough stuff there which are appropriate to get you into this mark range. Okay? Now it's a case of how high up do you go.
Can I just say, I know, sir, the biggest thing is about perhaps the use of Dreamweaver and the website, but mainly the concept keyboard. The concept keyboard could be validly used in a gym, and it is in some gyms. It's your description of it that shows that you perhaps don't quite understand what it is.
Okay, so let's just have a look. So it says, candidate describes some hardware, communication technology and software which may be appropriate. Some specialist vocabulary used has been explained. Meaning is clear. Candidate has in the main used a form and style of writing which is appropriate for its purpose, with occasional lapses. I would say yes, that's correct. You've got a few spelling mistakes in there. I don't know if it's spelling mistakes or if it is actually just because we can't read your handwriting properly. The candidate has expressed moderately complex ideas clearly and reasonably fluently. Well, with your actual discussions with some of them, you have. Okay? Candidates use well-linked sentences and paragraphs. Information or arguments are generally relevant and well-structured. Yes, they are. Okay? Occasional errors of spelling, punctuation and grammar. I mean, coming down here, I suppose your question might be, well, why on earth don't I get this if I've done some discussions? So candidate discusses appropriate hardware. Notice we are now on appropriate. Okay? Hardware, software, communication technologies in context. That is why you're not going in here, because of the appropriateness of the things you have actually talked about. Okay, however, your discussions were actually probably the best out of the group.
So far.
Okay, yeah, so far. As we said, I mean, I don't know what you think, sir, maybe...
I would have perhaps thrown in a mouse as an alternative to of an input device, or as a complement of the input device. I don't think I think you'd have got into the top mark bracket just on the discussions without throwing in alternatives. Yes, throwing alternatives as an end thing, perhaps, or even an ergonomic keyboard. But as Sir said, go with something you know. Don't go with something you think that's trying to impress the examiner. Go with something you know.
Indeed. Okay, so, you know, on a bad day, 5 marks if you get a grumpy examiner. Today, I'm thinking 15 maybe.
14, 15.
14, 15.
Yeah.
Okay, so good stuff.